Let's go. We here now. We here now. Wholeness and Balance Vibrations family. Whew. GLM7. We still going at this. It's definitely always a time for us to continue to connect. I'm gonna let it breathe for a little bit, get a sip of water. Wow. So we did it. Conscious Economic Forum launched. I went in, if I can say so myself, just gave a really linear view to what it's looking like and what to do about it. Now that's under our belt. This Saturday, we're jumping in again for our first automated wealth training, I guess you can call it. Yeah, automated wealth training. And I'm just going to keep building like I always do. It's very interesting at this phase because to build an entire social network, to bring esoteric knowledge, to invent, different things that are needed inside of the field of metaphysics, to broad shoulder, the economic situation with affiliations inside the platform, and just to bring us all together, like to not be towing one line or another, like this doesn't need to get to balance at some point. It's a lot, especially be at 20,000 subscribers. And again, it's not about the likes, it's not about the subscribes, it's just about the awareness, because, you can really test the yield a little bit based on how many people are actually getting the message. But I feel for sure that, maybe these numbers are kind of rigged, and maybe this is already reverberating throughout the cosmos because there's just more than me doing this, saying this, expressing this, and most importantly, emanating this. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Today's also, I'm going to get some rapid fire questions answered because I know we've had like at least 2 joints and we didn't get the questions at all. So I'm sure it's in here and it's backing up a little bit. So I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to do some rapid fire on questions. But before I do that, again, if you're trying to get yourself together and you need to get it right, on all levels of current, you're pushing into your sovereignty. secretenergy.com, it's fresh, it's clean, brand new GUI, lots of functionality. It's like a meetup for conscious people. You can get on there, you can see who's in your area and, link up with them, send them a message, let them know I'm on deck, I'm on ground, and really get with people that have the same kind of interest and vibration that you're carrying. Also, remember, it's secretenergy.com/automated. And that's where you can go and register to be a part of the automated wealth forum. It's not public because I just don't want to be all out there in public talking about certain things. I just don't think it's necessary. If you have an interest to really get yourself together, then that's there for you. And we're going to do that this Saturday. It will be on wax at some point. It will get released to the general public, so you can always wait on it. But why wait? As I'm going to prove today, if you're already waiting and you're doing something that has nothing to do with where you really want to go, every time I turn on, like, let's say YouTube or whatever, I just see people partying and dancing. I see a lot of men doing that too. Like women, it's great, shake it, get the energy flowing, move it. But for men to be all out here and just like acting like it's party time and drinking and all that stuff, and you got all this on the line right now, it just says so much. It just says so much. It should say so much about you to you. That's really what it's about. It's about deprogramming yourself, breaking the spells that are not serving you within yourself. And, if you see yourself just acting like it was the same thing always going on, you got to ask yourself, how much are you really focusing on getting to something different? And how do you do that? So today I'm going to give you some pointers because there's a few ways in and out of this existence. Like I said, some people discover the matrix by entirely different means. There's chemicals that can get you out of here. There's words and mantras that can get you out of here. There's a vibration and frequency. There's certain places that you can get you up out of here. So there's different ways to get in and up out of this realm. But what's most important is if you had a chance to fly off for one moment and you were a good observer, you would have noticed certain things before you then are booted back up into the mainframe. Let me see. I think I'm glad somebody says we're clear. So it looks like I got some good sound on this. So minus the details, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but at one stage I actually accomplished killing myself here. it was just one of those things that I didn't expect to actually happen. And I just found myself in the situation. And as I was in this situation of death, I was telling myself, dang, man, look at it now. Now you didn't win and killed yourself. And it was strange for a moment because it was like all this fear. But then as I began to settle in, I started wondering, how was I still talking to myself if I was dead? And that's when a great mystery unlocked, because needless to say, I'm actually here now. The mainframe booted back up, but I for sure had checked out, just for a periodic point, and noticed something that is key and imperative to even my existence today. And that's that the body is not the end all finish all. That it's actually, when we say the spirit is every bit of a component of thought. Okay? And I'm going to have to prove this today because, when you confuse different things, like let's say in meditation, you're supposed to not think. So then people would think that thinking has nothing to do with the spirit, and it would just kind of go on down that direction. But I want to prove that, when you're thinking to yourself, that actual faculty that you're using to animate something, that's the real existence. That's the real, what you would say, spirit or you that is immortal. Because no matter what situation you end up in, you're going to still be back there, tumbling thought, speaking to oneself. And also, whatever you're seeing, you're going to try to interpret to yourself. That's why this dialogue, we always say that, you're the mission. It's because the dialogue goes on between you and you so much. Like, you're the only one that really knows you. You've had this personal relationship going on with yourself where you keep talking to yourself and answering back, even you're answering back. So you need to understand how this dialogue works out on the metaphysical level and why it's so key to even getting in and out of matrices. Because it has a lot to do with concentration. So the two words that I'm here with you today on is emanation and imagination. And in this case, more of emanation versus imagination, because English is a very tricky language. So it just so happens that what many people would now know as emanation tend to describe to them as imagination. And there's a difference between the two. So I'm just going to go into emanation very briefly, and I'm going to give you a definition. And the definition of emanation is an abstract but perceptible thing that issues or originates from a source. A second definition is the action or process of issuing from a source. And then the third definition here says a tenuous substance or form of radiation given off by something. These happen to be the spiritual, or let's say religious, and then the definition of physics. And these are the definitions that are given within those respective arts, if you may. So notice how when you think of an emanation, you can definitely say when you start to think, you're emanating something. You're even actually giving off a radiation. Thought can be measured. They got gamma rays. Gamma rays are a form of radiation, right? So theta waves, delta waves, all these are forms of radiation. These radiations are energy, and they they attract and they repel, okay, as all energy does. So I'm going to explain to you again how this whole existence for you began is because you thought your way into this. But not only did you think your way into this, you focused, you concentrated. Because even look what the term it says, concentration is making something that is not solid, solid. So you're focusing on something, you're taking all of the energy and you're putting it all into a point, and then whatever you're focusing on is to manifest. So I'm here to tell you that, so when you get out of the body, when you die, or however you get out, you'll find that you get back in by starting to actually concentrate on everything you know about here and where you left off. I'm like, what was going on? And if you concentrate hard enough, you start opening it up. like a light. It kind of like opens up like a light, very similar to a projector, and you start seeing the scene running again, and then you jump into the scene and you get into the body, right? And what I'm saying is that that's kind of like hacking the system. You're not really supposed to see that, because what that will do is it'll let you know what happens. How does a being start controlling how they come in and out of worlds? How do they get out of a world, pause a world, if you may, and then go into another one? This has a lot to do with concentration, because only when you truly know, not believe, but when you truly know something and you know it long enough for it to set in and start changing things, it's basically what focus really is. This is why many have no power, because they just don't believe in the power long enough. Like after a day or two, the power is fictitious. There are things that happen to you in your life that I feel like even the controllers, if you may, if you want to give them that term, so-called controllers, they would love for you to forget that. You've been through some stuff, and your family has been through some stuff, and your ancestors have been through some stuff that they would love you to just forget about, because if you forget about it, you no longer contain the essence of it. You no longer contain the power of it. Like even my awakening, I realized how this is the data that they really want to erase. Because the awakening was so strong, you could never convince me again that the Matrix was real, that most people knew what they were talking about, and that there were codes, layers to this. There was a whole language being spoken. There was things even written on the streets. The buildings were configured a certain way. All this stuff I was able to see. It was 2 weeks. So when that was done, it wasn't no convincing 7 that the world was the same illusion that I just left out of. And you got to realize that these situations that are even happening in the world right now are just that strong. Like when you see the whole world, they got the mask on their face and all this stuff is going on. If you find yourself still kind of like not really changing, you need to get on your focus and realize that, yes, you can change your reality to whatever you wanted to. You could be, as they talk about in the last days, those that will be guided would just be set apart. Meaning that you would actually find yourself in a space where everything was cool for you. You know, it looked tranquil and peaceful. You know, nature, the birds singing, the whole nine. And, you know, the rest of everybody is enjoying the chaos. Some of them are enjoying the chaos because they finally have something to do. It's like realizing that everything that is going on most of the time is all the judgments. And then the judgments and the fights and the arguing and the quarrels, that's all anger. That's all heat, fire. So you would just basically see everybody in fire, on fire, and enjoying it. And then you could be that one being that's just sitting there like, okay, I get it. I totally get what's going on. I see how the deception took place, but how do I get beyond this? And I'm here to tell you, you have to concentrate. You have to be able to focus long enough and know what is beyond this. Like, how was this created in the first place? For you to start beginning to feel how to move into other spaces. So I'm saying, once you realize that this load of you right now is an emanation from the source. The source is a totality, right? And also, what makes emanations more powerful is when they start unifying with other emanations, right? It's like when you have an idea and you start putting that idea together, there's pieces that come together. You even say, man, pieces is coming together, man. We just found sister blah, blah, blah. She's got the property. My brother right here, he's got this and that and this. And then they just, man, guess what? Yesterday, they dropped one of them off yesterday. We could use it for that, man. It's coming together, man. And this is because you start realizing that, well, what we are is, like I said, we're like a glove for the higher self, which you would call God. Original emanations. We're a perfect fit. And when something is thought about, this is the being that puts it into action. Starts to manifest it. We're the magical beings, the pentagrams, if you may, that manifest inside this physical reality. But remember, don't get lost in this, because you're not the body. You're not the pentagram. You're the thinking and moving emanated force. And the more powerful you can become, The more powerful you become is the more powerful you feel that awareness. And that's also what's happening in this time right now. You feel this awareness opening up, and it's a feeling. It's not a knowing. It's not something like you read and you learn. It's like a deja vu. You start feeling, you feel a weird, you feel something weird, you smell a weird smell. Start to remind you of your great grandma's house, even though you've never been there before. It starts to remind you of other countries back in other days. You know, you smell cinnamon being burned over a stove. You know what I mean? Just something that comes out of nowhere and just. And like I said, that's because we're breaking through layers and we're cracking through the surface. Because when you're not focused, you create layer upon layer upon layer of illusion. Now, illusion is light. Okay? I had to define this the other day. Someone asked me again, what I felt like the whole world being an illusion. Why do I think it's a real purpose in creating all this? I said that is actually pretty much of the misdefinition of the word illusion. The word illusion, ilu, el, al, ol, il, all those are entities of light. That is a vocation through light. So a Zion, just like you have the word mansion has Zion on the back of it, it's a place that things stay. So the illusion is a place where light is kept. So it says nothing about whether it's fake or real, unless you think that something that is bright or something that is lighter or dimmer is not real. And, so you're mixing two different things. Yeah, it's an emanation. It's not at full wattage, full magnitude, but from what we call real. Well, if you concentrate on something, you can't concentrate on something that's not real. When you think something's not real anymore, you stop concentrating on it. So that's also a key of getting in and out of it right there too. Like if you're just oh my goodness, who's going to be elected? Oh my goodness, they bring this shot. Oh my goodness, that's just making you more static and dense. See what I mean? So you can deprogram from that. Realize your power as an emanator, and that your focus needs to actually be on realizing this power so that you could feel it. And then once you could feel it, you could trust the process. You could trust yourself. You realize you're not actually there's no such thing as time. It's not time for you. Everybody else may be running on it, but it's just not your thing. That you become a controller and a master. And you're not like really concerned. It's like worrying and all that kind of stuff. That breaks the concentration. And also you're not trying to find something because you found yourself. So the tutelage is happening. You're coming into more and more feeling of self, and it's opening up more and more. But if at every moment you're closing it, with the, monkey mind and all this crazy stuff going on, you just close it right back up and you start focusing on something else. That's how one loses the ability to be aware of these kind of things. And then they feel like, oh my goodness, it just gets crazy because light basically starts to solidify. It starts to slow down. It becomes a dense object. It takes on a geometric solid. It becomes solid in front of you. And if you don't know how to pass through it, it becomes roughly your cage. So a lot of people feel like they're trapped inside of this, trapped inside of the body. And really what it is that you've been separated from the knowledge of who you truly are. But you're living inside of that knowledge. And if you would focus even on what I'm saying right now about how the emanation works and how even when you leave here this time, you're going to be on the other side thinking. But it's going to be way more serious because you're not going to see anything at first. This terrifies people. I told you before, it's like the anxiety and all this kicks in, and the being called the mind, because it can't recognize anything. It's like, oh shit, we're in darkness now. Utter darkness. I need to get back to where I was. And it'll start focusing on, like I tell people before, it will find a groove to get in, and it will insert itself into the groove. And then you reanimate from that point. You can even catch people when they're reanimating. You can see it in children because they'll reach like 8 or 9 years old, 10 years old. Now it's happening a lot younger. It must be something going on the other side where it's too many. So they coming in really fast. But you basically look at a child, lights come on. Like some of them are young now, but generally 9, basically 6, 7, 5. Lights just start turning on. Then they start having personality. That's something on the other side concentrating, finding its way back into existence. And so it's quite beautiful to realize and quite horrible to forget. I also wanted to bring awareness of that. Now, when we say I got to focus and get back in, we have an immense amount of awareness. So we know how this construct is created. We know about the lights. We know about the periodic table. We know about the silicones and the carbon. We know about some of the worlds that they're created with lighter codes. The code is not complex. This is what you would call this is when you would start getting to thinking that the world is fake, is when the coding of the world is actually like a weak code. This is why also it's difficult for you to translate your dreams over into physical reality, because the code that your dream is using is more rich, as I mentioned, more embroidered than the code that we use here. So when you're passing back through the filters, if you don't have a way of interpreting and reinterpreting back on the other side, basically decrypting, you don't even remember your dream anymore, because the language being used there is much more richer. That's why it's just lights. You can look into your mind's eye, like if you ever caught yourself dreaming, you'll be seeing lights. The whole damn thing is just out in front of you like a screen, but 3D. And then you can project yourself into it. That's the same thing of how you got here. You're just separating these because you have that one. Because you have dreams. Dreams seem to confirm to you that this one is a reality and that one's a dream, but you went too far. You went 2 + 2 = 6. No, what it is that there's a prime frequency, a prime focus that you're actually at. And that comes from, like I said, a preference. Like you learn optimal things. Like, is this kind of thing present? Water, a mate, habitable life forms, food, all these kind of things. This is what you start concentrating on. And because you've seen this before, because you have the DNA, so it's seen everything, it begins to basically zone in and hone into a wavelength and a frequency. And all this stuff, man, again, it's amazing. However, in certain constructs, they operate certain ways. Like some of these constructs are really more like nets. It talks about this in the book of Newt, right? It talks about how, there's nets laid in the afterlife. And you treat your ancestors to assist you in not getting caught up in nets. And it's interesting because these nets are like, well, even in this time, it's kind of why you see the Jedi Master, he has this droid. And when you understand this relationship between a Jedi Master and the droid, you kind of get a deep level of how it works when you have power and you're coming into these kind of matrices, these kind of coding systems. So you people life of the Jedi, as really said, I'm talking about DJEDI. I'm not talking about your Star Wars. I'm talking about your DJED, which is in Kemet, the Jedi and the droid. Why is the droid there? So the Jedi, how it works is the Jedi you mostly see in meditation, using the Force to flow through all things and see all things. And then when something is detected, like an anomaly, an imbalance, the Jedi rouses themselves from the meditation, gets the droid and gets in the ship and goes into that reality. Okay, now, just again to understand the archetypes. The reason why the droid is there is, notice when the Jedi rise into the reality, there's all these different things like mainly gates and doors. In this code that the Jedi is not proficient at, doesn't want to learn, does not know. The droid then attaches in, opens the door. The droid is doing all sorts of stuff to manipulate the matrix that the Jedi has to go in and deal with something in. So that's an archetype. That's to explain that in these worlds where there's actually computers, a lot of this frequencies and thoughts and a lot of that is all just flying around in the air. Like even, like I said, people on the radio, people chanting on bullhorns, all of this noise basically is all frequencies and wavelengths. And when you're traveling through all of this, you have to be very proficient. Generally, Jedi coming in is very focused on whatever the mission is going to be able to then eject warp speed out of that consciousness and then get back into that state of balance. Or else things popping off inside of those worlds easily turn a Jedi into a Sith. Now, it's interesting, again, though, how these words are termed, because I think that these are actually parties that really were with each other back in the day, and they're just trying to make a conflict now. Because, of course, the Sith is supposedly Seth. And the children of Seth are the Cushites. But in the same stroke, the Jedi were also Cushites. So how is it that you're going to have like two enemies fighting each other that were originally on the same team? And I see a lot of this in this new rewritten culture, because it's rewritten. Like I just learned today how proficiently the Rig Veda is all about the Kushites. It has nothing to do with India. Nothing to do with the place you now know as India right now. It has everything to do with Kush. And if you knew the ancient tongue, you know, as they call out the Kushites, as they call out the Greeks, as they call out all of these other nations, even the Aryans, which just meant noble ones. Like I said, the nobles. So who has time? Because, you know, these books are like this thick. It's like, who has time to be going over all that and trying to rearrange and put back your history? Who has time even right now to be doing all of that? And what would be the benefit for that being? And so this is how I kind of gauge what's happening in this space, in this reality, in this time. Because it's like when you have so much of the foundation that has been rewritten, you have this disconnection that's happened between the parents and the children. You have the disconnection that's happened between the supreme and self, or the emanator and the source. And then you look at, you know, how humanity is acting with the solutions. So like a little power, they run with it. They off on their own side. I'm my own team. And it's like still building, you know, like this rather than like this. You know, empowering us all, realizing if we raise together and we all come in at this together, you know, just how that's what makes the emanation powerful. That's what makes things strong. That's what makes it worth it. You know, really, you know, on a true sense, if you wanted to have fun in projecting yourself into realities, other than that, it's almost like you're just trying to escape from one dying world to another dying world. And so I guess you got to be equipped for both. You got to be equipped for realizing when you're finally going to wake up in that world where everyone's going to get it, or all the beings there are going to get it, and y'all going to emerge as an emanation, becoming the source. Again, that's why people don't really have any power, because they don't know how to take on enough of the emanations without going into some level of conflict. That's why I said you could simplify it for yourself by putting it in the code of the elements, fire, earth, wind, water, than rather like all the races of the world, and now, or even just a black and white kind of thing. You got to find the right level of coding, if you may, to speak to yourself. Like you got to know what you're looking for in this too. Like trying to pay attention to everybody else. That same system that I was explaining to you, how it works also is that when someone's in between manifesting themselves here, they'll be here, but they'll be abstract. I'll say that again. Remember how I said, like, it's almost like you start focusing from the other side to get into this realm, and then you start becoming static. You build a body, you build a lifestyle, you find a place where you fit in, but you still may not have completely been able to send your consciousness all the way into that projection yet. So what that appears like for beings over on this side dealing with that kind of person is they're just not like, they don't got no depth. It's like they're just like, if you ever want to know why they're like that, because they're still projecting, that's what they're doing. They're still projecting themselves into this space. They're trying to get or have enough soul force or concentration to fully manifest here. And this is where things kind of get dangerous, because the reality likes to teach the beings that we are a way to do that is really abhorred, and that's like vampirism. Like when you actually need someone else to confirm who you are in order for you to actually feel like you are something, in order for you to become static, present, concentrated, happy, if you may. It's like the only way that I can feel that is if somebody else is going to confirm that for me. That's a vampire. So what it really says is that you have to concentrate into yourself. True enough, you can see all the emanations around you, but you got to see them as reflections of you, at least at one space in time. That's another thing. You'll be like, well, I don't see how they look at like me right now because I'm on this level. Start thinking space and time. Back when you didn't have any arms. Back when you were just a worm or amoeba. Back when you were barely manifesting here. You were just a ball of light moving around, hadn't become solid yet because you're still on this other side. So this lets you also understand another thing too. You got to cheer up a little bit because think about this. Why would you even want to come here? If you didn't already know that it was on point here, you could do a lot here. You would manifest as the glove of your higher self, acting out in the physical plane, saying it, which is a thought, and then being it, which is the action. That you will have infinite levels of possibilities and exploration as long as you didn't get stuck in somebody else's net or get sucked on by some vampire looking to use your energy and your force and your concentration, your beam, your lens, right? And then also moving with this intelligence and this wisdom where you find others. Because your spectrum, like if you're noticing parts of your spectrum is missing. He said, man, you could really complement that part of my spectrum. You're like the yin to my yang. And then you start connecting that energy and power. That's really where our ancestors were at. They had realized how they connected together and they formed an array. And they still exist in that state of totality. So let me get into some of these questions because I just wanted you to be aware that, don't get trapped in this God box. If you remember, the God box is like a box of mirrors, and you look in there and it seems to go on forever, but it's really just limited to that space, right? And it's just all a hall of mirrors. Don't get caught in the God box. Get out of the God box. Realize the emanation version of you, and then start bringing yourself into awareness of the source. And then doing it long enough to start feeling it. And then you start combining with all of your emanations, all of your thought fields, everywhere that you projected something, everything you projected something into, and they become online. And then when they become online, now you can see in all those spaces and you can feel in all those spaces. See, that's what I'm saying. It's like the whole, I think, man, it's just all mimicry, man. It's biomimicry. They're just mimicking us. So they try to show you how, because they have these cell phones everywhere and a few other devices that when they turn them all on, they basically have like a presence in all of those places. And they can even use the barometric pressures and different meters to try to create even a map of what that space is like. Well, that's still a droid. You have put your signature on all sorts of things. And when you turn it on, you're going to be present in all those spaces. And that's how, like, you ever seen lights start beaming all over from a different place? It's not just because if you're trying to figure out how this is going to work, it's like the same way that it works when they create a three-dimensional object. They got to beam the light from different angles. So those different angles are all of these different variants of self. All different emanations, as long as you claim that you're the source. Once you claim your allotment as the source, you take all the responsibility. So that means that any of these beings are your kids. As the original one, all these beings are your kids. So if they're bad, you're at fault because you raise these badass kids. If you're the creator of them all, you got to take responsibility for them all. You can't say, oh, those I created and those I didn't create. That's not a creator. That's not the source. Then you're not the source. You're just the emanation. You're a phantom. So how do you get out of the phantom zone, basically? Is you start connecting and collecting all your emanations. And you feel it. You do this long enough. It's not something you got to go and look for and search for and try to find somebody to do for you. That's not what this is. But the reason why a lot of people give up on this because they try this for about a couple hours and then it's a wrap. One day and it's a wrap. I've had to do this for at least months at times before it starts to settle in. Then it gets what you would call spooky for a minute. The numbers all be like the same and people say things that you're thinking in your mind but don't have anything to do with your conversation. And you know, your dream is the next day. You know, you dream and then the next day you live the dream that you dreamed before the day. You start to think you did things in the dream that you really did here. And so that's adaptation. That too will pass. That's a part of getting focused. And as you stay that course, then what happens is it starts to open up the ancient secret. It opens up the sacred vaults of your own consciousness. And then it speaks to you in a language that you understand. Too deep for these tongues, these verbal, evocations. It's an intonation that speaks deep within you. And then it sets a foundation with you and it begins the work. So what you're waiting on, if you're waiting at all, is yourself. And then time keeps ticking. Every time you jump on the dual train, because they're going to play that game. That's how the nets work. So every time you jump in or you cause others to jump in too, that's another thing. It's like, it's weird because when you create something, that's the cause. Okay. So when somebody jump in because you share something that's going to make them jump in on it, it's because of how everything is relative. It is still affecting you. So when we become emanators only of the truth, then that's what we start to feel and that's what we start to be. And that's how it works. So I know it sounds like common sense, but so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at these questions. Okay, so this first question is from our brother Rahan here. He says, as sperm cells, were we already doing this to be in the material realm? What I'm saying is that time is what everybody has screwed up. Like they think, okay, that's 9 months. Okay, that's 2 years. Who gave you the idea of what span something is and what to call it? That's a program right there. So even when you think I was only a sperm and for 9 months, it starts to mess with the concept of even what I'm saying right now about how, as an emanation, you brought yourself into this reality. So to correct it, you realize that at the phase of the magnitude that you could concentrate, that's what you became. And you lived as that until you could keep concentrating beyond that. Because remember, concentrating is I'm forming stuff around me. So it's like a butterfly. It's like I'm forming myself through this metamorphosis. But all this is going to take place in that space. And then it's going to start, it's going to like a shadow. It's going to cast something into a mode. This is why the planets are seen to be in themselves like, as it's explained, that there's a planet for each part of the body. And the planets are actually layering us, like the tongue is Venus. And many different planets, like the arms or the Mars and the martial forces, right? And then different parts of the brain. So what you're really doing is you're thinking through lenses, but these lenses are vibratory fields. And every time you go, it's like dipping something. It's like dipping something. Every time you go, okay, well, we're going to dip them in chocolate. Now we're going to dip them in sugar. Now we're going to roll them in nuts. Now we're going to sprinkle them in. You see what I mean? So you're getting layer after layer, and those layers are function in reality. They're more like senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch. Until by the time you finally come online, all this coalesces into a point of the being. But see, because you already have human in your DNA, so the awareness that I could be a human is already in the code. So it's almost like, unless you just say, well, I want to be a bird, and you focus and concentrate on that. And it's like, maybe if you spend your whole damn life with a bird mask on, right? With the wings on your back, tell everybody, yo, call me Bird Man. You know what I mean? And it's like, and then you even eat nuts and stuff, right? So when you die, you're going to be a bird. Because you're going to concentrate on that, and then you're going to have wiped all of these ideas of all the different things you could be as a human. Because see, as a human, you shoot down the bird, damn, eat the damn bird. You got the bird on the plate. So remember, all these are just, these are levels of light. So you would go into the preference, and if you would like, a lot of people want to be rich, right? You always want to be rich or have a lot or be abundant. Let's put it that way. Many people want to be abundant. So you say, well, what is the most abundant form? Well, opposable thumb, dub hemisphere, multiple layers of body, superior brachium, sperm and ovum, egg, all of this stuff, man. You're like, and languages. How many languages? Thousands of languages. Unknown language. How many different tones? Lots of different tones. And oh man, I'm going for that, man. How much is that one? And so what happens is that you gain this expectation. This is what concentration is also really about. It's like you kind of gain this expectation of what you're ready to, we always look for more. That's why the species is kind of like progressively adapting. And so it's going to be like, I want to be this. I want to be a very powerful human being. I want to be just myself in this life. And so that's what I'm talking about. Let's keep going. So the next question is actually focus techniques. When you're an extreme idealist, when you're extreme idealist. Okay, I guess you're saying what are focusing techniques when you're extreme idealist? I mean, I can only say just, what I've already said right now. You're going to play games with yourself and forfeit. You want to be so smart or want to be so whatever that you just forfeit control of everlasting existence on a roulette table. What I mean by that is that how DNA works is it's like certain things turn on in you at a certain point. So even if you're listening to this knowledge right now, you land on your number, but you can't expect that on another bing, this thing flopping around the table, you're going to land on this again. So you have to sometimes wrestle with that form of consciousness that doesn't want to adhere to just facts. What I'm telling you is facts. Like we can sit down and I can show you so many other things that show you how when you focus something for a long time, it starts to congeal and become physical. Now, like I said, they got billions of dollars for telling everybody that with the secret, and that was only part of the secret. Just how you manifest your reality. But now that's become so loose because people just want to manifest a Tesla or something like that. They kind of lost that. No, this is kind of like the whole thing, but there's laws of how to realize the whole thing. And part of that is the principle is the difference between an emanation, small fry, little frequency on a spectrum, to an entire octave, an overtone, and how you could progressively move yourself into the great expansion. And then, like I said, people are looking for, so what do I do this? What do I need to say? How do I need to sit down? Or how should I move myself? And I'm telling you, people come into it in different ways, but there's another one that you just focus on staying aware of that long enough for the feelings to start seeping in. And because the time that we're actually in right now, which is there's a field that's already open, it responds. And you start feeling the power because you only can feel the power. Like what you're asking for, you can only feel. A lot of people are looking for something out of this metaphysics. And I'm telling you, it's a feeling. And this is how you begin to open up that feeling. And it's through realizing certain principles that are facts. And then you can wrestle the monkey mind and all the rest of the fictional characters because they can't stand on that type of truth. And then what happens is that there becomes that great day. Like I have that great day. It's finally when the master Therian, this is the one who thinks it's smart, is standing up against the great spirit. And what this is that basically when you start realizing the things that you don't think are true, like about mysticism and living forever, start to prove themselves so much to you, it starts to disapprove what you used to believe in. And you realize that what you used to believe in was actually a lie. And this transition is this is a very sensitive moment for a person because one foundation is about to be removed. So if another one doesn't get put under there, they're just going to fall. It's going to feel like, they're just falling into nothing, right? And they're eventually going to have to cling back to one of those untruths. But the truth is not the untruth. So that means one of them have to go. And people are uncomfortable with not having a foundation, so they stand on untruth. It's slippery and as crooked as it is. That's like your politicians. They're slippery and they're crooked, and people are standing on them. They are not truth. So you come over here into this foundation of truth, and then that it changes everything about you. So let's keep going. So this is from our brother Mustafi saying, what role does semen retention play in the grand scheme of these teachings? Just to be very clear, the man's body is to stay aroused. There's a lot of teachings. There's a lot of masters that have come through, and they've all had something great to add to this, especially about the male tantra. And semen retention has now come out, and then a lot of people are talking about it. And then they got you thinking you're supposed to be over there like 4 or 5 months, still holding that thing, like about to blow your head off, or you're super aggressive at this stage. And it's like an Ayurveda. It can be drained at certain times, and sometimes it's to build up. And so how does that play into this? Because you'll notice that when a male expends himself completely, he's not even attracted. He's not only not attracted to the female, that's why he rolls over and go play a video game or something like that. She want to kiss and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, that's just how you look too. Like, you see what I mean? Because once you empty it completely, you discharge. Okay? So when you temper that, you're always like charged and attractive. And what this literally does is when you're going through the field, this is your daily life, it pulls things to you rather than you chasing it. So that's one of many huge benefits of retention on health, and many different things, but primarily that field of attraction within inside the male body, and whether that thing is set to the wrong pole and you're going out in life and you're just chasing everything and it's running from you. It's just running from you, and you're like, man, you're just frustrated. You don't even got the energy. That's of course why pornography is so dangerous, because it's just like you just expend, and then you're like there, and you just don't want to do anything, and then it just takes down. It's killing the bee. So you got to learn this semen retention, even if your first stage semen retention with pornography. Help yourself. Like, I'm not here to tell you what you can't do. I'm just telling you all of the solutions. And I'm telling you, here on this planetary system, there's a lot of things that we could do, and we're only experiencing a fraction of it. So I would love to see humanity get out of these straitjackets, and all of this stuff it's nets. Just get out of these nets. So we cutting some nets today. All right. There's a question here. I'm just going to read through some of these pretty fast. Someone said, do you do nasal breathing all the time? I don't do it all the time. I know our sister Neva does, and she's a master at it, and she swears by it. And, when you wake up in the morning, just knowing what side of your nose is clogged is very important to balancing out. Check out our sister Neva Shah, doing her thing. That's SHAH. She's also here on the gram, always sharing lots of love, lots of knowledge, lots of wisdom, as one of the supreme mothers. Here's another question. Here's, what words of wisdom can you share for my situation? I have a fiance of 6 years. We broke up. And we're still under the same roof. Damn, my guy. Woo! And it eclipses after that. I guess he just kept going with that like a book. Wow. What do you say to it? Like, there's so much, right? Like figuring out. I can't even address that question right now, only because it would take me an hour. There's so many more things that need to happen if you two are going to even have to be in the same house. Like, even why is that way? Is it because of a child? Is it because of money? So all of those things is needing to be addressed, because you're into a complicated situation. I won't say every situation people get themselves, that's an easy one. And, just do this, and then you can grab this black bag and crush some walnuts and put it around your neck for 3 days, and you'll be straight. Should be better. You'll be, no. It's a complicated situation, so it has to be handled like a surgeon. What I can recommend is ambassador training, because that's where the surgeon work is. Sovereignty mentorship. Learn the codes. Like, get yourself enamored again. Like, actually get your powers back. You know, start feeding some of it to her. Maybe she likes it too. And then you'll be able to come into some level of harmony. So that's what I have to say about that, rather than trying to give like a one response for something that I know is indeed a complex situation. So keep moving through these questions here. Okay, so we got that. What words of wisdom? So we got that. How do you create a more powerful paradigm shift? I just explained that. Let me just go through these. Like, I'm going to go rapid fire. 1 second. I'm about to go rapid fire. I'm about to go in. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so we answered that. Okay, how do you create a more powerful paradigm shift? Okay, so we just talked about that. Just keep focusing on what I'm saying about the emanation, and it's going to come into play, because anything powerful is going to take concentration, it's going to take focus. So you need to get that honed in. And this is the best thing to do it on, is just seeing yourself within yourself and, you know, and sitting in that. So the next question, how does one stay focused on truth when people are, that's all you need to say, really. Who cares what other people are doing? I mean, are you going to erase everything? That's what you got to start thinking about, man. They're going to cost, look how much they've already taken from me. Now they're going to take it all. I'm going to let them, because that's what it really is a choice. Because when it's people are, you need to start seeing these people as still loading, static, but still loading, and you being at a certain stage where you're ready to actually pop off something greater for your consciousness. Then it becomes about you. This is the most important thing, is because you have to think about sometimes when you watch a movie or something, okay? This is the energy you're tapping into. You watch a movie or something, right? Different strokes for different folks. Movie's over, you feel like getting your shit together. You're like, man, they doing it. And then you, for about 5 minutes, all of a sudden feel like you're ready to make it happen. Okay, so that energy right there, concentrated, should be the energy that you're enamoring yourself with, or shining and beaming on yourself. Because if you don't figure this out, that's on you. And if you're letting other people become the responsibility of why you're not figuring this out, this is basic, but I just got to reiterate this again. It's like, what a shame. Even if you're mad at them, you don't like them, or they're acting stupid, let that all be a reason why you're on point with your stuff. And know you're going to really get to the next level. Let them be just basically a confirmation for what you're going to achieve, rather than something that's actually holding you back. This next question is, do you work with any entheogenic medicines? What is your preferred plant? I have not been on any substances for at least a year. And as far as entheogenic substances or entheogenic substances, I always have my way of pronouncing that. People be like, no, it doesn't pronounce like that. And this is just because when it calls me. When it doesn't. And I'm more like that. I'm not really like an addict where I got to have it. You know, it's always got to be there, and I got to put it in my vein, or put it on my arm, or drink it, or smoke it, or whatever. But sometimes it'll start calling me, and then it'll come. Like, I won't be going and look for it. Somebody else will say, hey, you know, you can go on this journey, and it'll feel right. So these days, it's been a constant entheogenic experience dealing with the reality. You know, when I go in, I don't go in and be playing around and I'm trying to find myself. I know where I'm at. So if I'm going to go in, I'm going in to see something. So I'm conducting something. Like, I'm at a specific place at a certain time that I think certain things are happening. So after at least 100 journeys, like after the 20th journey, I stopped going in to just see what was going to happen. I started, you know, okay, we're going to have all these elements laying out on the counter. We're going to see what they turn into. Today, we're going to look for this, what is really ocean water. We're going to find out right now. So I always had a real objective of what I was doing. And at this point, the wheel is spinning infinitely. So I don't find myself needing to go back to know something. I find myself needing to be here and continuously layering the foundation, because it's clear that the one underneath most people is about to go just be removed. So someone saying, if you feel intense energy run through your body, I mean, I'm in the dream state, am I in my way? What'd you try to do with it? Okay. What I do is that I keep the energy moving, and I don't try to do anything with it. That's what I was trying to tell everyone before, is that when the energy is moving through, it's not really the time for you to decide what kind of house you're going to manifest. That you can do later. What you're trying to do is build the energy consistently without touching it with what you call your thinking mind. So if the energy starts moving through you and you start saying, what should I do with this energy? Generally, the energy starts to cut off. You want to stay in the energetic field until the point where you just basically start feeling like a magnet, like the soft side of a magnet, like you're just floating. And then as you keep taking breaths, something happens in a feeling arena. It's no longer a thinking arena. It's a feeling arena where certain energy starts to work with you, pass through you, connect with you, etc. And this is all your field enhancing itself. So I'm going to go back here. It says if males have to hold their semen, that means as a feminine opposite, women must orgasm a lot. This is very interesting because I noticed that females have a tendency to, some of them to be a bit more on the masculine side, with that if they also come into an orgasm, that it takes them down too, and then they need time to rebuild. Versus some women, every orgasm they have, it keeps bringing their energy up higher and higher. So it just all depends on kind of like how the woman has her system configured. But I've seen both. So that has me not able to answer that as yes, that women just need to orgasm a lot. Some of them do, but it seems like some of them that have more of the masculine component get worn out also and turned off after an orgasm. So it's better for them to get to that peak and then learn how to not climax. As they say that the actual climax is not the same, or the ejaculation, if you may, or the spasm or the orgasm is not the same. The ejaculation is not the same as the orgasm. So what that means is that you can actually separate those two feelings, never go over where you're pushing out the fluid and the fluid just basically stays in and keeps building. The next question is, can we go visit others in their dreams? The dream has so many layers to it. Generally, if you visit a person in the dream, they won't even be able to recall that they even were in the dream with you. Okay? Because most of the time they'll see you as something else. Because people perceive, like our language, the language of the dream is interesting because it's not the same as this world, but it tries to relate to us in archetypes of this world. So sometimes you'll see a person in the dream as another person and never realize how you associated that person with that person in your mind. Now, is there a mind meld, a place that you can go, others that are also asleep are connecting with you and they know how to do this? Yes. Generally, that is also done in some level of proximity or through something that allows them to stay in resonance. Generally, if you're eating the same food, many things that actually harmonize the person's frequency, taking the same of certain elements in the same place, eating the same food, pointing in the same direction. So as many things that you can get that basically phase in that frequency with that person. Of course, meditating with that person, doing things that are really, I won't say hands-on just as touching, but like, you really begin to immerse with that person. And this has always got to be something that they themselves are saying, yes, this is something that I'm practicing too. So it's like a telephone where you two need to have the same type of telephone. Now, make no mistake, you'll see people in the dream. Some people see me in my dream and see me in their dream. You can get information from people in a dream and they not know anything about giving you that information because, again, it's about just tapping into the DNA and tapping into the lines that connect us all, and then pinging those lines for the data that you want. So the last question here is, what is the feminine tantra retention benefits? And I think we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. We're at the conclusion of today's GLM. More than anything, I just wanted everyone to really, really get centered in within self and knowing how powerful your concentration is, why it's talked about so much, even with learning things, but how it really works from going from a being that is just a sliver of consciousness to blown into the whole thing. And then allowing that to open up your heart so you begin to feel the power. And how then you will conquer things like these ideas of death, which are not real. But as we talked about earlier, you can get so crazy into the program, You can start believing the lie of the program. But then there'll become a certain point where you realize that it's a lie. And then, as I said before, you need something also that is going to be just as firm to put back in there. As that foundation is removed, you put another firm foundation there, one that is real strong. And that's the reliance on self. And still remembering all this, you can only help a lot of people when you can keep generating energy. So you need to learn how to do that on your own. Stay motivated. Realize how much this is all about you still. You got to make it through this. You can always boot up this at any point in time once you start learning certain levels of knowledge. You can come back for any person up in this and give them another message, but they'll still have to be the ones flipping the switch. Time controls a lot of things for a lot of people. You can master time by understanding energy, how you draw things in, attracting stuff to you. Don't get too low. Don't run your energy and deplete your energy by, the negative, the external. You just get depleted all your energy. You're mad, you're upset. You spill all of your energetic field, your semen, whatever. You give all of yourself, you're exhausted, then you get betrayed. Learn your lessons as a neophyte here, become an adept. And then see how truly that word again, emanation versus the imagination. Go read about it yourself. See how the emanation from the source. Learn how to be the source. And then you'll learn why nothing has a beginning. And, that starts opening up that field for you that you could only feel. You could never really comprehend that with some kind of brain. And then when everything is dead and gone, you'll be back there in a complete field of things that you can manifest, choosing what you want to project based on your preference, because you already inherit. As I said, the first one is free. This is the gift. You inherited the God body, all the knowledge, all the wisdom, all the truth. So you're going to at least prefer this. So now it's about time for us to realize, what was all this really for? It's about action and manifesting. You can do stuff here. You can feel amazing. You can connect with people. You could talk to them. You can encourage them. All the negs, I could steal from them. I can hurt them. I can kill from them. Like, who wants to get into that? But just think about how much energy and orgasmic flow and power and joy, happiness that you can push into this and enjoy for yourself, and how that will come into others also. Because that's what it would be if you figured that out with your own field. But if you're trying to get that from somebody, that way, that's not how it works. You end up becoming needy. You get out of energy. You become depleted and defeated. So I trust that you can see the difference between these forces. We'll see each other soon on the GLM 8 when it happens. Sign up for the wealth system, automated wealth. Why work? It's just ridiculous. You need to spend a lot of time on yourself at this stage. Sovereignty mentorship still booming. If you're dealing with financial problems, specialist training, it's free. And it's not free like, hey, I'm trying to get you into something. It's free like, yo, get yourself together. Here's all the tools that you need, but don't sleep. It's a real thing out here. Concentrate on where you want to be and project where you are. That's what we got. I'll talk to everyone soon. Wholeness.